All right, appreciate the comments, Matt, and we're thrilled to be here. So thrilled to start today off with two fantastic companies, Inside Sales and DoubleDutch. Real quick, as Matt mentioned, I'm CMO of HourlyNerd. For those of you not familiar with the company, we are a marketplace that connects businesses to over 6,000 MBA-educated on-demand consultants. And that's enough about me. Let's bring on both Mick Hollison and Russ Hearl. Great. Thanks for being here, guys. Love to start off with introductions.
Yeah, I'll start off. So Russ Hearl, I'm the VP of Worldwide Sales Development at DoubleDutch. So responsible for all things growth at DoubleDutch here based in San Francisco.
Great, fantastic. I'm Mick Hollison. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of InsideSales.com.
Great. So we've spoken extensively over the past week, and this really is a great story. But Russ, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about when you joined DoubleDutch, the state of the state, what you were facing, some of the challenges and the opportunities at face.
So I joined DoubleDutch at the beginning of last year. There was about a couple dozen employees at the company. We had some sales reps who were kind of like your classic kind of hunting sales reps who were taking down some big deals. But really, we had just raised some venture capital, and we were looking for a way to grow the company in a very aggressive and sustainable way. And so, my charter was to come in and build a sales development program. And so, what I looked at was, the fragmentation in the market, and then I looked at, how low the barriers to entry were in the market. And based upon those two data points, I decided that the approach that we were going to need to take was a heavy outbound demand gen approach. As an example, there's only about 4,000 searches for keywords. We make mobile applications for events and conferences. It's kind of like a business intelligence for events. And there's not a whole lot of, search traffic for those types of keywords. So, I knew going into it was going to be, it was going to be a slog, and it was going to be, a lot of hard work, and it was going to be all about outbound prospecting, and that's where kind of InsideSales.com came into play. So really leveraging best-of-breed tools, whether it's from, Datanyze, which helps us, capture insights about who's using other marketing technologies, which are highly correlated to becoming a customer of DoubleDutch, to predictive analytics, things that InsideSales.com is doing. And so really, before I started, I already had Salesforce.com dialed in. I had InsideSales.com ready to go. And the first batch of hires that I brought in, 9 people. Now it's 35. We were already up and running on the technology.
Got it. And so let's fast forward 18 months to present day. You guys have gone from 23 employees to 140.
That's right.
You've increased sales 300%. Mm-hmm. I think that's a story that everyone in the room wants to be a part of.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about what's been going on over the past 18 months?
Yeah, I think we hear a lot about growth hacking, and there's a lot of kind of information out there about it. People are a little bit confused as to what that means. To us, what it meant was really just hard work, outbound prospecting, cold calling, so leveraging tools in order to make that happen. We use systems like InsideSales.com to really make our calls a little bit less cold. We also heard a lot about social selling. It's kind of all the rage right now, and really to me, what social selling is leveraging information that's out there on the public internet, like from LinkedIn, to make your cold calls a little bit less cold, so that you've earned the right to make that call. But I don't want to kind of underestimate or leave out the impact of technology in this, because what we were able to do at DoubleDutch is identify who our market was, which are VPs of marketing, event marketing professionals, and then use the technology to make the outbound dialing and data collection of those activities much more systematic. So that now, I've got 35 direct reports. I have one-on-ones with every single one of those direct reports every week. So I think a big part of our story is how flat our organization is. So we didn't have to add a lot of layers because the technology allows us to do what 10 years ago I probably would have 2 or 3 direct reports who are managing these teams. I was able to do on my own. So there's a lot that you can do with some of these newer kind of sales acceleration technologies.
Yeah, and I think that it's a great point. I think it's one thing we all want to hear about as we use more and more technology. I'd love to hear from both of you. Maybe Mick, start here. Where do you feel like the line is right now between people and technology?
It's a great question, and it's always going to involve a bit of both. But we're data junkies at InsideSales.com, so we in the end believe that math is going to trump anything else. And so while at the moment there requires a great deal of personal interaction to, for example, qualify leads, with where things are going from a predictive lead scoring perspective, and not just scoring a lead, but determining its contactability. You're starting to take out the inefficient parts of the human element of sales and marketing. So, science really hasn't been applied to sales in quite the same way as it's been applied to marketing or to other disciplines to date, and that's really what we're trying to drive. We think of ourselves as sort of the money ballers of sales.
Makes sense. And Russ, thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, we take data that comes out of the inside sales system for me to guide and coach our reps. So some of the metrics that I look at are the number of dials to conversation rates, the conversation to demo, and then of course we look at all the typical metrics that a SaaS company will look at: cost of acquisition, sales cycle time. We look at close rates, but all of that stems from having a system that's collecting all of this data. And so one of the metrics that I'm particularly pleased of, and has actually helped us get quite a bit of a huge ROI in our investment in tools like Inside Sales, is we have a 37% uplift in our call to conversation rate. So simply put, we're having more conversations with people on the phone, which lead to more demos, which lead to more deals. And that alone has allowed us to deliver huge ROI to the business. So yeah, we're all about data, and I know some of the tools that they're working on, Neurolytics, I think you mentioned, are going to help us be smart about who we target. Because in our market, there's over 5 million events worldwide, and part of the challenge is a lot of the bigger companies that you would think are great prospects aren't necessarily your best prospects. So to be able to guide, relatively recent college grads who, the 35 folks who work on my team, focus their attention on the best prospects in the market. I mean, that's something that's difficult to do. You have to have data sources. You have to have the ability to quickly analyze that data. And so one of the things that we've been able to do with the data, for example, is plot it into a linear program and say, okay, what's the optimal sequence of reaching out to the market? Is it call, email, call? Is it email, call, email? Do I just send a bunch of emails? Do I call people 4 times a day? And what we've been able to do with some of this data is plot it into a linear program and actually show, beyond the shadow of a doubt, 40% higher conversion rates in terms of someone booking a demo with a particular sequence of outreach, which in our case is call, email over the course of 7 days. And you really couldn't do that before you had this kind of new category of sales acceleration technology. And so it's really just helping us optimize everything that we do at the company.
Makes sense. I'll put you on the spot a little bit. Number one data point you guys watch?
Well, I mean, we're always looking at cycle time. I think that's, as a business, that's a really important one to look at. But personally, I'm always looking at the conversation to demo rates. Like, if one rep is having a 5% conversation to demo rate and the average is 18%, what's going on there? Are they calling people? Are they calling CMOs, and the best way to reach a CMO is an email? Or are they calling too low and they're calling the secretary who gets bombarded by other salespeople? So that's kind of what I look at to really optimize and dial in the outreach.
Yeah. Question for both of you, but Russ, we'll start with you. Again, sort of going from a team of just a few people up to people in the 30s, 300% growth. You talk about a flat organization. How are you guys set up to work across other departments?
Yeah, I mean, I really look at the design of the organization as a kind of a theory of constraints problem. So it's all about maximum throughput. So how can you construct a sales organization that works a lot like a manufacturing line? So it's funny because manufacturing learned a long time ago from Henry Ford how to structure that sort of process. But when it comes to selling and marketing, it's traditionally been very siloed. You'd have an account executive who does all the cold calling and all the closing and all the supporting and maybe some invoicing as well. But what we've discovered by using some of the data sources that we've got, if you separate those out and you specialize in the outbound demand generation, and in our case, because we're B2B and we're focused on marketers, actually reaching out to them through the telephone using tools like Inside Sales, that you can actually increase your throughput throughout the organization. So in our case, we've organized it such that there's 2 sales development reps for every closing rep in our company. And that's a little bit of a switch. There was a study by the Bridge Group that showed that the typical SaaS B2B company had like 3 closing reps to every 1 sales development demand gen rep. So we kind of flipped the model on its head. And then the way we look at the downstream parts of the organization, being at the closing resources, the renewals team, the implementation team, is we look at, say, the closing team as like a consulting organization, capacity and utilization rates. So anytime that our utilization rates are more than 80%, we've got to make an adjustment. If it's kind of significantly below 80%, and utilization is defined in terms of demos, running demos. So if there's a closing resource, an inside sales rep, sitting at his desk or her desk and not on a demo, we start to ask questions like, why are you not, is the demand gen engine not filling your calendar with enough opportunities and enough demos? And so when you look at it that way, you have the opportunity for the first time ever in selling and in growth to identify what the true bottlenecks are within your organization. So that's why kind of homage to Eli Goldratt here with theory of constraints thinking. But that's what's helped us scale this company is organizational design, leadership, tools, and processes.
Yeah, so from the other side, right, because we talk about growth and we just heard how sales sort of peers into the organization. From a marketing perspective, how does it work at Inside Sales?
Yeah, well, probably the healthiest relationship I've ever had the privilege of having between marketing and sales. It's really one fluid thing, and a lot of what I believe is that we're at this unique time period where marketing and sales are intersecting in ways never before imagined, and salespeople are having to utilize more marketing tools, whether it's in social selling or other things. Marketing people, conversely, are taking things much further down the funnel than they ever historically have, which accommodates this specialization that you just heard Russ talking about. And it's worked quite well for us, much like DoubleDutch. When I joined Inside Sales just over a year ago, we were 162 people. We're now north of 400 and plan on closing the year a little north of 700. So we're experiencing some pretty aggressive growth in our own right.
It's incredible. Russ, outside of Inside Sales, what are some of the tools? I think people always want to know, what are the tools that the growing companies are using? What else are the ones you can't live without?
Yeah, I mean, I know John here at VentureBeat wrote about Datanyze recently. We use Datanyze because there's a high correlation between companies that use marketing automation tools and their likelihood of wanting to use a kind of mobile analytics solution for their events. We use ClearSlide. We're probably one of the top users of ClearSlide. All of our live pitches are done through ClearSlide. I think last month we did 750 demos, live demos through ClearSlide on a team of 20 closing reps. We use a variety of data collection resources. We use BroadLook. So to know that there are conferences that are coming up, we're able to go to websites and identify those conferences and then feed the reps intelligent information about when they should call a particular event marketer based upon the timing of the event. So we're just using a tremendous amount of technology. And we're using Salesforce, of course. So that's all integrated into Salesforce. We're a big believer in the ecosystem of Salesforce.com and really plugging things in. Our marketing team uses Marketo. And so we're getting intelligence from email opens and webinar attendees, and that's informing the outreach from the sales development team. So really big on technology, in particular data-driven technology.
Got it. Okay. And then again, question for both of you. I don't think we can talk about growth without talking about social at some point. Obviously, just saw Facebook and Twitter's earnings calls. How much does the sales team and marketing team here leverage social in their day-to-day?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned earlier, kind of social selling is a bit of a misnomer. We use publicly available information that people put out there about themselves on LinkedIn to really inform a cold call. And that approach has worked really effectively for us. I mean, to give you some data points here, since the beginning of the year, my sales development team of 35 people have generated 2,950 demos, 2,950 demos from cold calling, utilizing information from LinkedIn, like, hey, found your name on LinkedIn, I see that you're in charge of event marketing. Would love to get some time on your calendar. Of course, it's an abbreviation of that pitch. But comparing that to inbound interest, because again, we're in a market where there's not a lot of inbound interest. So we've generated 350 demos out of the marketing team for inbound demos and 2,950 from outbound on basically the same expenditure of capital. So I think there's a lot. It's interesting because if you look at LinkedIn, you hear a lot about social selling. You also hear a lot about the death of cold calling. That's not true. And it's, we use that information from social networks to make the calls warmer, which helps us, book people on demos.
Yeah, and on the marketing side?
Yeah, very, very similar. In fact, Insight Pool just conducted a survey of the Deloitte Fast 500 technology companies, and InsideSales.com was fortunate enough to be named the #1 company in that particular survey, which is sort of a social currency index. So we're huge users of social, but much like them, it's largely to inform our calling processes, and it's also for ongoing engagement. We're a bit in the Mutual Admiration Society. We're big users of DoubleDutch's tool itself, and a huge aspect of that is creating a social fabric during an event. And so whether it's during an event or just on an ongoing basis, trying to intelligently source and speak with your leads, social plays a big role for us.
Got it. So closing remarks, obviously everyone wants to hear more about growth. Biggest opportunity this year for both of you guys?
I think it's just getting smarter on how we target. 5 million events a year. It's going to be using data from Neurolytics, which is a solution that Inside Sales is coming out with to target prospects more effectively at the right time and in the right place.
Got it.
Great, yeah, and on our end, it's all about growth. We were blessed to take a very large Series C round of $100 million led by Polaris and Kleiner, and we're investing that really in 3 growth dimensions. We're investing it in geographic growth, so we're going to be moving international, in headcount growth, which I already mentioned previously, and then lastly, really what I would call the enterpriseification of our product portfolio and really reaching a level of scalability, reliability that the larger enterprise demands from us.
Great. Well, that's all the time we have. I want to thank you guys both, Inside Sales and DoubleDutch.
Great, thank you.